warm welcome to Great Principles. I am Seema Choria. We have a very special guest today. She's a multifaceted personality with a wide-ranging experience in teaching, school administration, assessment, student relations, and training of teachers. For her contribution in the field of education, she was awarded the iconic Leadership Award by the Government of Maharashtra in the year 2020. Having been an educationist for over 22 years, she has worked with some of the top schools and colleges in the country. In 2010, she was involved in the development of study material for economics for CBSE. Since 2011, she has been an IB examiner for business management and a moderator for internal assessment of research projects. Since 2016, she has been a workshop leader for IBDP on approaches to teaching and learning and business management in India and abroad. She also does verification of schools for IBDP from outside India for authorization and evaluation of the school. She's a strong believer in developing team spirit amongst her teachers and emphasizing on training, communication, recognition of each student's area of interest, and an advocate of Kaizen's approach to continuous improvement. It's our honor and great privilege to welcome Ms. Kinari Shah, Principal D.Y. Patil International School, Worli, Mumbai. Welcome to Great Principles, ma'am. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for those lovely words.
So, ma'am, beginning, ma'am, first we would like to know something about you and how did you start your career in education?
Yes, Seema. It was by accident, but I think it was a pleasant accident. So I was studying, I was doing my master's in commerce, and I had my teacher who was also teaching in Jai Hind College. And I was just into my second year, and one day in the evening she told me that we do have some small time vacancy in our college, and why don't you come and meet the principal? So I went there. I was quite carefree because I thought I have nothing to lose, right? I mean, I was quite sure that I'm going to be rejected. No experience, just fresher, just completing my studies. But the principal must have thought that there is some spark, and he decided to give me a chance. And after a couple of days, I was thrown into a classroom full of students who were just a year and a half younger to me, because that was TY BCom class at Jai Hind. And I enjoyed that journey. That first lesson I still remember. That's because it was extremely fulfilling and satisfying experience. And from there on, I knew that this is what I would like to do. And that's how my journey in education began. I then moved on to Mumbai University, taught there for a couple of years there, and took a break, pursued further studies, and then joined A levels. So I have experience of teaching in Mumbai University A levels, and then since last almost 2 decades, I'm dealing with the diploma program. So it has been a very enriching experience. I would say that every day I feel I've learned something, and that's the beauty of getting associated with academic field, right? It does not allow you to become stagnant, and you don't feel you are stuck up somewhere.
So it seems like you were destined to be a teacher, an educator, and a school leader.
Yeah, maybe. Yes, absolutely. And so I do have family, members who are associated with teaching field, but I never thought of taking this up as a career. And I'm thankful to the Almighty that I got that wonderful opportunity. And then I realized that this is where my heart lies. I knew always that I'm not cut out for 9 to 5 job and desk job. And I think I feed on to children's energy. So that keeps me going and that keeps me motivated.
So no wonder, ma'am, you were meant to do a bigger cause, and that is, changing so many lives. Yes. So on this note, ma'am, we will go ahead. D.Y. Patil International School, Worli is a very, renowned school, and we would like to know what is the philosophy of the school and what makes it unique. Ma'am, just if there is some information that you think is required to be answered even in Hindi, we can use a blend of both the languages so that we can reach out to masses.
Sure. Yeah. Of course, we all know D.Y. Patil as one institute that has its legacy in education, right? We know that there are a lot of international schools popping up, and a lot of them are based on business model, because they are not basically started with education as vision. Whereas in case of DY Patil, and I'm saying this because I've worked in various schools, so I understand the philosophy of every management and expectations. And when I joined DY Patil, I realized that it's truly meant for education. Our chairman, Dr. Ajinkya D.Y. Patil, his vision is to give 21st century skills. And we all talk about 21st century skills, but he has truly broken it down in tangible and actionable tasks for us that introduce skill-based program in the school, allow students to take responsibility for their own actions, and giving learning experiences. And it may not always be, people often think that it's an international school, so you study about international history and you study about international issues, but it's not that. We do focus at the school a lot about what happens around us. We encourage students to take up local issues and try and solve them, and it could be as local as something with your staff working at your home. It could be, something to do with your driver or with the maid. And let me tell you, Seema, children really take it up beautifully. So in the pandemic, I saw, so we have right from nursery up to grade 12, right? Range of children. And it was beautiful that each grade contributed in their own way. So one thing is teachers motivating them, teachers encouraging them. We as school, we believe in love all, serve all, and we do encourage. However, it has come from students, it's their initiative. So I had my higher grade students raising more than 35 lakhs right at the onset of pandemic for those workers who are migrating, so we arranged food for them. And throughout the year, children have taken it up. So I have my middle school children who have established a club, Make Meals Matter, and they do outstanding job. In fact, Mr. Chahal has taken a note of it, and he met with my students to congratulate them. That was the kind of work that the children have done, and let me tell you, it is absolutely their work. It's not that the school has designed the plan. We encouraged, we supported, but it was their work. I have my little ones, primary children, who have set up community fridge, that this is the time when we are not able to move out to do service. What can I do sitting at home? So they raised funds, and raising funds was also not by making an appeal. It was more by, they arranged a fun evening for parents and friends and family, and that's how they raised funds. So they realized the value of money, they realized the value of service, and the fact that they realized that we can make a difference. We can bring smile on someone's face. I think that's philosophy of DY Patil. That's what the school really stands for. I often tell parents that I'm not here to talk about fantastic sports that the school is doing, or I'm not here to talk about state level and international level sports people that the school has produced. Of course, that has happened. But what I'm here to talk about is I want to make my children responsible and good human beings. I think that's what the schools should sign up for, and I'm very pleased and satisfied to say that DY Patil's philosophy truly believes in it.
Absolutely wonderful school with a great philosophy, or on bringing out the main essence of education, and that is to build a great human, a thinker, a problem solver.
Very true, very true. And these are the skills that the children will use. Problem solver, you said it very rightly, Seema. When we were talking about raising funds to set up community fridge, children had initially come up with an idea that we'll set a fridge right outside the school. And then we discussed that what would be the pros and cons, and is it really feasible? Then the children thought that it would be easier for us to just ask parents to donate some money. But I said, that's not going to be satisfying, right? If you ask, if my child asks tomorrow, I'm going to give money. But is that something that you really want to do? We just want to take donation. I said, you'll have to work hard for it. And children took up the challenge. So these little ones designed a fun evening, that too virtually, encouraged people to participate, including senior section children. And then that's how they raised funds, and that took good amount of money. So I think that's what children need to know, and that's what the school is trying to do. That you will have challenges in life, you will have questions for which there will be no ready answers, and you'll have to work to find a solution. And another good thing about the school is we believe in inclusion. So we do understand that somebody is going to be excellent in mathematics, but may not really like language, and somebody could be excellent in sports and may not like academics. How do we identify each child's unique ability and provide support? So we do have high achievers in school, and at the same time I do have students even in my higher grade wanting to become a Bollywood actor, and we promote them, we encourage them, because that's where their true call is like.
Yeah, so what I can gauge from this is like the very incident you spoke about raising funds. So what rightly action was taken is children have really creative solutions unless we give them the opportunity to. The school did the right thing by mentoring them and not sending them the list of instructions.
Yes,
So this is
yes,
how the change impact, and it made them take the responsibility rather than just following the orders. When
very
you when a child feels that I am a responsible change maker, miracles are bound to happen, and they are going to unleash their true potentials. So going ahead, ma'am, now I would ask you that, like to ask you that, how does school leadership and management improve teaching and learning at school?
all right. We all, I mean, the leadership team at school, we all are primarily teachers, and I think that has helped us in understanding teachers requirements, teachers challenges really well. At the same time, we are also keeping in mind student profile. So something like, say, for example, I was working in another school in the past and something worked over there, does not necessarily mean that the same program or same approach is going to fit into the school as well. What we very consciously do is the reflection exercise at two levels. One is teachers appraisals, teachers class observations, and teachers themselves reflecting on their performance, and the second is students performance, because that speaks volumes. So we do a very detailed assessment performance data analysis. We genuinely spend time, so my coordinators and the senior leaders in the school spend time in understanding, and I'm not talking about grade 10 and grade 12 data analysis. This happens at all the levels, that if these are the skills that we were hoping to develop at the end of the academic year, have we succeeded in doing it? Or if these are the assessment objectives we were hoping to achieve, have we really attained those or not? So the reflection exercise, which happens at two different levels, help us in designing a robust teaching and learning program. And the outcome of this data analysis is used again in two areas. One, in revisiting our curriculum. So whatever we are delivering in the school, see, being an international school, we do enjoy that flexibility because the international curriculum does not dictate textbooks. And as a result, we can do a lot of research and collect and create fantastic study material. So that's, and of course, it's an ongoing exercise. We cannot say we did it last year, so let's relax and enjoy for another couple of years. So we do use this reflection student performance data in deciding our curriculum for the coming academic year. And also, after the teachers appraisals are done and teachers have reflected on their own performance, we design our professional development plan. We call it as PD plan in the school. And this PD plan is not restricted only to, like, say, for example, I'm a mathematics teacher and I need to get trained in new curriculum which has been launched by the IP. Okay, that becomes a mandatory exercise. However, what is more important to make the classroom teaching engaging and productive is to ensure that the teachers have right skill set to reach out to students. It could be soft skills, communication skills, just being patient, time management skills. So these are the skills, and these workshops and these PDs, sometimes we conduct it ourselves. We invite speakers from outside, or we sign up with some organization who are inviting experts from outside India or from the country, and we send teachers for these trainings. I think, the human resource, the teaching staff in school, unfortunately, not just in school, in any organization, the human resource salary expense reflects in income and expenditure statement. Actually, it should be reflected in the balance sheet under assets, because that's a very big resource, and one should definitely invest thoroughly, completely, to ensure that the teacher's mindset is right. their well-being is looked after, and only then the quality teaching is going to happen in the class. So just by hiring a highly qualified, well-trained teacher, I don't think we will be able to attain what we want to. So this is how we constantly do reflection exercise and try and build our PD plan, as well as our curriculum, to ensure that the teaching learning is, as per our expectations.
Ma'am, a very powerful message you have brought in here for all the schools. Like, don't teach your teachers as an expense. They are your assets, because ultimately a school is not run by infrastructure. It is run by people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it is for the people and it is run by the people. So a very, very important note here. And we also understood why ma'am advocates Kaizen's approach. As she rightly said, that you need to continuously improve your staff and make them involved in the process. Once that is happening, then definitely upskilling is done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So going ahead, ma'am, we'll move to the next section now, which is called academics part. So right now, pandemic is happening and children are distance learning. So what do you think? What are the risks associated if the children continue to distance learn, and why is it important for them to return back to classroom mode?
Yeah. Wish we had a perfect answer for that. See, first of all, distance learning, I think, has helped us in coping up with the gap which is created all of a sudden because of pandemic, right? But if you look at Seema, you and I, when we were in school, fortunately, we didn't have to go through it. And you, whichever curriculum you've attended school, if I ask you, Seema, offhand, think about one incident that you remember from your school days.
Right.
It's most likely going to be maybe your one of the annual day practices, or maybe your sports class, or maybe the prank that you played on a friend, or maybe the tiffins that you shared in your breaks, or maybe your lovely conversation that you have had with a teacher, or maybe it is so-called punishment that the teachers gave us, right? None of us are going to recall what happened in chemistry class in grade 7, or what was there in chapter 2 in grade 8 in mathematics, right? That's because academics are not the only thing that we go for in the school. And unfortunately, what has happened in the pandemic, all those peripheral experiences and all those skill sets that one can develop by going to school in a physical setup are all removed, and what has remained is just pure academics. And trust me, most of us, at least those who are honest, would admit that we looked forward to going to school, not to we were not dying to attend that physics class or biology class, but we were dying to meet our friends or share something. Even in the primary section, we wanted to share something with our homeroom teacher, or just telling your friend, this is what I did last evening, right? Now, of course, with social media and Instagram and WhatsApp and Snapchat, children are in touch with each other, but the human connect is grossly missing. And a student can learn only if he is in happy state of mind. And right now, to be very honest, I'm not sure how many of them have remained in happy state of mind.
Exactly.
We do have situations where families have lost their near and dear ones, or somebody has experienced financial stress, or somebody has had to migrate and leave the city because of pandemic, and this has caused a lot of disturbance. So I would not say that distance learning is the best solution, or that is something that is helping students. However, yes, we are able to reduce the gap which is created. We are able to make use of effective use of technology for delivering lessons, for remaining in touch with students, ensuring that there is some learning going on. They do get an opportunity to speak to their teachers, speak to their friends. But yes, running in the corridor is missing, or having those soccer sessions are definitely, children miss that. I have little ones writing to me, if you can go to school, it's not fair that we are not allowed to come to school. I had a mom telling me the other day, a junior KG mom, saying that, my child is telling that, can I not go for an hour at least in the school? This just shows that the children are missing coming to the school, coming in this environment, spending time with their friends. And actually, that's where the true learning happened, right? Even in a class of 40 minutes, when the teacher was teaching English, she must have shared so many other things. And the children would have learned so much from those contacts and those conversations. So, yes, distance learning is helping us in putting a tick mark in doing things. And I'm not saying that it should not continue. We have no choice. We will have to continue with it. And hats off to parents and teachers. They are doing a fabulous job. It's not easy. Maybe I'm a working mom. I have my work going on in the drawing room, and the two chairs away, it's my son's school going on. So parents are also contributing, supporting in number of ways. Of course, initially I had to tell parents that please don't wear teacher's hat and start telling your child that pay attention or don't look outside the window. That's what they used to do in school. They did stare outside the window. You didn't know. So be patient with them. I also appreciate the way teachers have really quickly, upgraded themselves and started making use of fancy tools to keep classes engaging, productive, and to ensure that the children's level of interest is sustained. However, that still that human connect is missing. So yeah.
Absolutely, ma'am. School is an integral part of students and parents and teachers' life, the entire community. So this definitely is a stopgap solution, but cannot be a permanent thing.
Correct.
And social question, emotional question, both needs to be grown for a child.
Absolutely.
What we are missing it out. So
we have modified our assessments, and we have made a lot of changes. Also, thanks to IB and Cambridge curriculum that allows schools to be flexible in their approach, it was possible. But I'm not sure, to be very honest, how SEC schools or our state board school and national board schools have managed, because they don't lend so much of flexibility. So that has caused a wider gap.
Yeah, and ma'am, hopefully these days there is a lot of news coming up that government is trying their efforts in bringing students back to school.
Yes.
They are trying, and they are, sitting there and imagining the situation of the entire country.
Yes.
For us to talk here is simple, but they have so many, a huge population at stake, and children are the biggest asset for each parent. So they are planning, and we might see at least our secondary section students coming back to school soon.
I really hope so, Seema. And let me tell you, so a couple of months ago, I was invited on a panel, and where we were discussing about the challenges faced by schools while they are operating virtually. And it was a mixed, we were 5 to 7 heads from different curriculum and different cities. So we did have this principal who was from tier 2 city, and the kind of challenges he expressed, I said I apologize for sharing my challenges, because now I understand those are not challenges. I get hassled after 10 minutes if the Wi-Fi is interrupted, whereas for some of these children, having access to Wi-Fi is a task, or white children, even teachers. So, when we talk about virtual platform, I think it's possible in certain areas for certain curriculum, for certain class of people. But otherwise, I am not really sure, how many children have really benefited out of it.
Right. So, ma'am, you were just telling me about IB, Cambridge, CBSE, SEC. So, on this note, ma'am, I'd like to ask you, ma'am, we are seeing a shift in schools these days. Some CBSE, ICSE are converting into IGCSE, IB. What are your views on this shift, and what is your opinion of these programs? Is switching to ICSE, CBSE, and state boards to IB, is it a wise move?
Okay, before I answer this question straightforward, I would like to tell you that any curriculum, whether we are talking about state board, national board, or international board, any curriculum is defined, its performance is defined, or its quality is defined by the kind of assessments it conducts. So if you look at the national board, state board curriculum, the curriculum is fantastic. ICSE curriculum, it's good. CBSE curriculum is quite intense. However, the difference here is the assessments. We are still focusing on pen and paper examination. We are still focusing on assessing a child's capacity to retain information and reproduce the information. So something that's available on my phone, I can just Google and give that information. I'm expected to remember it. And the opportunity to transfer that knowledge in real life situation, those opportunities are restricted. Now, coming to IB and Cambridge curriculum, as I told you, there is a lot of flexibility and freedom for us to mold the curriculum in both these boards. They have their assessment guidelines. They do have their assessment objectives that defines, that allows schools, that gives direction to schools to design the curriculum. However, their assessments are very different. We do not encourage children to memorize content. We do not encourage children to say that, oh, you have to write in exact words that I told you to. Don't use your creativity or else you are going to be in trouble. As a result, the children don't feel burdened. The children get confidence to express themselves, and I'm saying this not because I'm in international curriculum for all these years. Trust me, Seema, when you speak to a grade 1 student in my class or a nursery child in my school, you would realize that they don't feel inhibited. They don't get scared because the environment is non-judgmental. We allow them to speak up and make mistakes. And even in the assessments, which are not just pen and paper, we tell them that go ahead and make a mistake. It's okay. You don't need to just reproduce what your teacher has asked you to. You don't need to memorize. There is no scope for rote learning. There is constant encouragement to transfer knowledge in real life situation. So what happens is the children realize that whatever I'm studying in class is not just restricted to a book. It's not something that once I'm done with my grade 8, I don't need to remember these things. He does not have to make an effort to remember because he's already applied knowledge elsewhere. In fact, we have modified our assessments to such a great extent that the other day I had parents telling that it was fantastic because my one mom said my son came and asked about, geometry and portions and ratio in the kitchen. And she said, was looking at him that, wow, you are, first of all, you are taking interest in the kitchen and you are able to apply mathematical concepts here. So what happened was most of us, I mean, if I just talk about myself, when I was studying in school, I studied mathematics in isolation and science in isolation. Whereas here in international curriculum, we encourage students that these are not studied in compartments. They all have connection with each other. They are interconnected, and please establish those connect while you are studying a subject, and that becomes so much easier. I mean, I never thought that geography and biology were connected with each other, but they are beautifully connected. I mean, an obvious connect would be mathematics and physics, but even physics is connected with English. Now, when teachers are teaching in using these methods and this approach, we do a lot of team teaching in classroom, wherein a physics teacher may invite a Hindi teacher to do some kind of concept. So this helps children in understanding that I'm able to establish those connects, and that makes the whole studying process far easier. Does that mean that international curriculum is all activity based and fun, blah, blah, blah? No, it's not. It's not true. Often in my IBDP orientation, I tell parents that you also start popping antidepressant because it's going to be a busy year for your child, for you as a parent, and you are going to be on toes. They will expect you to do things and they will expect your support. However, it is that pain, would delivery wala pain hai, ki the outcome is going to be beautiful. You will know ki after 2 years of intense diploma program, your child is an adult who is able to take decisions for himself, who is able to take responsibility for the action he has taken, who is able to face the consequences. So this is the difference between IB, Cambridge, and our national level boards. We only need to allow children to be creative, be independent in their thinking. We need to stop telling children that don't interrupt me while I'm talking. We need to stop telling children that don't ask me question. मैंने जो बोला वो लिख ले and बात खत्म. We need to stop telling children that your answer is wrong because I asked you to use word A and you have used word B. And is switching from ICSE, CBSE to IG and A levels or IBDP difficult? No, it's not difficult. I mean, you and I'm sure, if we had an opportunity to study in this environment where teachers told us that, Kinnari, go ahead and make a mistake. Kinnari, get up and say something. Even if it's wrong, we are going to applaud it. We are going to encourage you. I think we all would have had different kind of confidence, and we would have been real risk takers. We need to do that, and hence I've seen there often children switching from national board and coming to international board, they blend very beautifully because they feel comfortable. They realize that nobody's judgmental here. Nobody's going to tell you that, hey, you made a mistake and you are a criminal. Yeah. So
Yeah, absolutely. So what is needed is our education system just need to incorporate the best of IB and make the children critical thinkers. I remember when I visited an IB school once, I was given a beautiful example. I will explain you what IB does is. In a school you go, they will teach you this is knife, a sharp object, don't touch it. In IB we teach this is a knife, it's a sharp object. This is how you're supposed to use it carefully. So a very simple example, but it made my thoughts clear. Okay, so this is what IB does.
and you're so right, I mean, I often tell teachers here that my school is not a no school. I don't want to tell children, don't shout, don't run in the corridor, don't fight. I don't want teachers yelling at children. In fact, I have often told teachers that a quiet classroom is not a good classroom. I want constructive chaos. And why is it not a no school? Because children have to take responsibility for their actions. They have to understand that what is going to happen if I do this. And Seema, I would give credit to IB, PYP. In my secondary section, I don't have issues with fights and those discipline problems, and my teachers don't have to spend time in doing that. And that's because I think PYP, the primary years program of IB, makes children very responsible. They believe in conflict resolution. That okay, Seema, you and I don't agree, but that doesn't mean that we have to fight. I mean, maybe we agree to disagree, and this is what you think. That does not make you wrong. It's only that my thoughts are different. So conflict resolution, communication, negotiation is focused a lot in my early years, and that I think helps by the time children reach secondary level and they formed their opinions, but they understand how to negotiate and resolve a conflicting situation.
So ma'am has very beautifully brought out all the advantages of international curriculum and how it can be incorporated in Indian also. Going ahead, ma'am, there are a lot of achievements I'm sure that you have, but we would like to know that one achievement or accomplishment that you are most proud of.
We're not talking about any awards and those things, one, I believe, right? If I'm talking about me as a human being and as a teacher, I think the most fulfilling thing for me is focusing on the well-being of children. I have always focused not on the grades or the academic records, but on the happy state of mind. And at school, we have introduced series of workshops. We have strengthened our emotional and social counseling unit, and we do extend a lot of support to parents and students to ensure that they remain in happy state of mind. Because as I told you earlier, I truly believe in it. If the children don't feel safe, if they don't feel secured, and if they're not happy, no learning can take place. No matter what fantastic resources I employ or what excellent work my teachers do, there would be zero learning. So that is something which we have done at school very consciously. Another thing that we have done and I'm really proud of is our career counseling unit. We have provided a very good solid support to our students in identifying what they are cut out for, and what kind of courses they can pursue. And we have been very patient with their choices. We've been very patient with their changes and changes in thought process, that I want to become a YouTuber or I'm going to become an influencer on Insta, and then after 6 months I'm going to become a banker. So those kind of extremes. But yes, my career counseling team is doing a fantastic job. So I think these are the areas which sometimes do get neglected in our race behind those grades and those so-called, ranks, but I've focused very consciously on it and ensured that children are getting enough support.
So this is ma'am who believes that what is the proud moment for her is that she is able to make a child see what they are and what they can be. So that is the proud moment for her. On this note, we reached a very, very interesting segment of the show, which is called rapid fire round. You have to answer in one word only, ma'am.
Okay. I'll try.
So
Yes.
here goes the first question. Do you think homeschooling is a good idea?
Not completely.
Next question. Name a school principal you admire the most.
All right, Mrs. Dolly Edelberum. Can I say? Yeah.
Please. Yeah.
Mrs. Edelberum she remained principal at Jamnabai for more than 2 decades. She's no more, but that lady taught me about how to be kind with children, and this whole thing about mental wellness and well-being. I think I've picked it up from her.
Great. What is one thing you want to change about the present generation?
Oh, instant gratification. That's what they want. They want everything yesterday. I think that should change.
Right. Which of the two is more important, having talent or working hard?
Working hard.
Does technology connect us more or isolate us more?
Connects us.
In a classroom, what should be an optimal teacher-student ratio?
I would say safe is 1:20.
Great. So even in one word, we have received a lot of insights from ma'am. Now, ma'am, we have seen your professional front. We have seen what you are at work. We would like to know, ma'am, what you do when you're not working. What other hobbies or sports you are involved into?
Okay. I love playing Sudoku.
Oh.
All right. I think I'm addicted to it. I don't think if this is the right word to use, but yeah, I'm going to be honest. Every night I do have to play Sudoku for some time, and I do a lot of thinking while I'm playing Sudoku. So it's a nice brain teaser and surprising, but I do a lot of strategic planning when I'm doing Sudoku.
Great. So Sudoku is ma'am's thinking cap sort of thing.
Yeah, you can say that.
So on this note, we come to the last question of the show today, and which is like the hybrid blended learning education. So is this thing the future of education? What do you think?
If you're looking at our country and if you're looking at the scenario where we are operating right now, I don't see it happening in near future. We are not really ready for it. An IB school like ours, for us, migrating to virtual world was not difficult at all. Because even in a regular classroom, even in brick and mortar school, the children used to bring their laptops, and we are used to having technology, we are used to employing it. And still I feel there is some gap. Whereas schools which are using chalk and talk and which are more conventional in their approach, for them to go for hybrid model, it's a different kind of commitment. Another thing, Seema, as I was telling you earlier, if you're looking at nationwide, or forget about nationwide, if you're looking at just outskirts of Mumbai, you realize that not everybody has easy access to technology, not everybody has easy access to internet connection. And if you go further down in interiors of the country, we realize that sometimes charging our phone also is a task because there is no electricity supply. Now, in this situation, hybrid is something which I think is a far-fetched dream. If we talk about blended learning, which we are doing right now, it is possible. But I think this hybrid model, for at least for some time, is going to be restricted and is going to remain in the domain of luxurious international schools, because those schools can afford and those schools have access to that kind of facility. But if we are realistic and we are opening our eyes, I mean, just look outside and ask our security guards or our our staff or housekeeping staff, and you would realize that some of them, even in Mumbai, are not able to cope up with the online teaching. The
Right.
children are missing it out. So I think hybrid is not realistic in near future.
Absolutely honest and very practical answer you've given, ma'am, because everyone is talking about the future of education is going to be changed. It will be
Yeah,
hybrid,
yeah.
blended. But even the reality is that even for middle class people, when two students have classes at the same time, they are crying for gadgets. How should
Absolutely.
I arrange two gadgets and having my own laptop giving to the child? How will I cope up with my work? So these
Absolutely.
are some practical problems which are there, and definitely we are not ready today for this. So thank you so much, ma'am. It was a wonderful session with you. We got so much insights on so many topics on importance of international curriculum, having teachers training, and how you sharpen your memory by Sudoku and get so many innovative ideas. So thank you so much for giving us time. It was really wonderful to have you, ma'am.
Thank you for having me. It was pleasure talking to you, Seema. Thank you so much.